Heard that Bishop Malone has issued a challenge to East Ohio Conference. Actually, a two-part challenge. First, try something different. Second, make disciples of those you meet. Now, I think this challenge goes more than just to the churches themselves, but I think it goes to each one of us individually. Now, as I was thinking about that, I was trying to think of some practical ways that we could implement those things. Something that would help you along in your challenge. So I remembered a sermon that I read several years ago by Richard Berkey. And in this sermon, he shares 3 practical applications you can use. So this morning, I'd like to share some of that with you, along with a little secret. If you want to increase those that are in the pews, it's a simple way to do it. And that is through relationships. Building relationships with other people, relationships with the community. Listen to this story. Jared and his dad were playing a game of catch one afternoon when Jared stopped and said, "Dad, is there a God?" His father, Joe, suddenly felt that same helpless experience that he had back in high school when he was on the baseball team, and he lost sight of a fly ball in the blazing sun. He didn't know whether he should move forward or backwards or just to stay put. There was this string of contrite answers that raced through his mind, and in the end, he opted to be honest. "I don't know, Jared." Yet, Joe's agnostic failed to stifle his son's curiosity. And so, Jared dug a little bit deeper. "Well, Dad, if there is a God, how would you know him?" "I really have no idea, Jared. I only went to church a couple of times when I was a kid, so I don't know a lot about these things." Jared seemed deep in thought for a few minutes as their game continued, and suddenly he took off for the house and he yelled over his shoulder, "I'll be right back." Jared soon returned with a mylar balloon fresh from the circus and a pen and an index card. "Jared, what are you doing?" his father asked. "I'm going to send a message to God. Airmail." Before Joe could protest, Jared started writing on the index card, "Dear God, if you are real and if you are there, send people who know you to Dad and me." Joe kept his mouth shut, not wanting to dampen his son's enthusiasm. This is pretty silly, he thought, as he helped Jared fasten that card to the balloon string. "But God, I hope you're watching." After Jared let go of that balloon, father and son stood there with their faces to the sky as they watched it sail away. 2 days later, Joe and Jared were driving down the street when they pulled into a free car wash at a church that was holding as part of their outreach into the community on a Saturday morning. "How much?" Joe asked as they neared the line of buckets and sponges and hoses. "It's free," the guy told him. "No strings attached." "Really?" Joe exclaimed. He was intrigued by getting something for nothing. "But why are you doing this?" he asked. "Well, we just want to show you God's love in a practical way." It was as if that simple statement opened a hidden door in Joe's heart. The look on his face was incredible. He said, "Wait a minute. Are you guys Christians?" "Yeah, we're Christians," the man replied. Are you the kind of Christians that believe in God? The man couldn't help but smile and said, yes, we're that kind of Christians. After directing a big grin at Jared, Joe proceeded to tell the story of releasing that helium balloon with his message just days earlier. I guess you're the answer to one of the strangest prayers that God has ever received, Joe said. Well, as humorous as some parts of those stories are, I have to tell you, this is a true story. And that story happened right here at a church in Ohio. And this church is one that is committed to what they call servant evangelism. Servant evangelism is demonstrating the kindness of God by offering to do some act of humble service with no strings attached. Jesus in Matthew chapter 10, verse 42, speaks of sharing a cup of cold water. And he's speaking really of the practicality of living the Christian life. Christianity and our relationship with God is personal, but it's not meant to be a private thing. Our life with God is a life that's designed to touch others in practical ways. We are God's ambassadors in this world. So this morning, like I said, I'd like to share some practical ways that you can share God's love. Jesus challenges his disciples and us in this chapter and verse, and in other places throughout the New Testament, to do the small thing to show the main thing of God's love at work. In Matthew 10, it's simply giving a cup of cold water. In John 13, we find that the night before Jesus dies, he stops and he washes his disciples' feet. And then he gives them a challenge to love others. He then makes this observation in John 13, verse 35. He says, everyone will know you, that you are my disciples, because of your love for one another. Do the small thing to show the main thing, God's love at work. We will never fully know what small act of kindness will touch and transform another person's life. Take, for instance, Jim Bowles. Jim was chairman of the parent company of Whammo, the maker of Frisbees. He once participated in a charity effort by sending thousands of plastic flying discs to an orphanage in Angola, Africa. His idea was that these children would enjoy playing with them. Several months later, a representative of the company went to visit that orphanage. One of the nuns thanked him for the wonderful plates that his company had sent. She told him that the children were eating off of those Frisbees, they were carrying water in them, and they were even catching fish with them. When the representative explained how the Frisbees were intended to be used, the nun was even more delighted that children would also be able to enjoy them as toys. You never fully know how a life will be touched by a small act of kindness, but God does. Jesus gives us a hint of the impact that doing the small thing to show the main thing of God's love at work. He shows us this in Matthew chapter 25, verses 34 through 40, where he says, the king will say to those on his right, my Father has blessed you. Come and receive the kingdom that was prepared for you before the world was created. When I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. And when I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was a stranger, you welcomed me. And when I was naked, you gave me clothes to wear. When I was sick, you took care of me. And when I was in jail, you came and visited me. Then the ones who please the Lord will ask, when did we give you something to eat or drink? When did we welcome you as a stranger or give you clothes to wear or visit you while you're sick or in jail? And the king will answer them, whenever you did it for any of my people, no matter how unimportant that they seemed, you did it for me. The second thing to keep in mind is that simple acts done with great love will change the world. Baron de Rothschild was one of the richest men who had ever lived. There is a legend that has it that the Baron once posed before an artist as a beggar. Now, while this artist, Ary Scheffer, was painting him, the financier sat before him in rags and tatters, and he was holding a tin cup. A friend of the artist entered, and the Baron was so well disguised that he wasn't recognized. Thinking that he was a real beggar, the visitor stopped and he dropped a coin into his cup. 10 years later, this man who gave the coin to Rothschild received a letter containing a bank order for 10,000 francs. And it had the following message attached. You one day gave a coin to Baron de Rothschild in the studio of Ary Scheffer. He has invested it and today sends you the capital which you entrusted to him, together with the compounded interest. A good action always brings good fortune. Signed, Baron de Rothschild. Simple acts done with great love will change the world. Think about how Jesus came into this world. How did he come? Not with bells and whistles, not riding on white horses with trumpets blazing, but he came as you and I did, as a little babe. He touched people at their point of need, not just to heal them physically or to lift their spirits, but to change their lives. He came and he gave his life on the cross, on this instrument of death, to pay for our sins and to change the world with his love. God was aware that we'd never get to this point on our own, and so he sent his Son to die for us. And he sent his Holy Spirit to lead us to faith and to change our hearts. And he sent people who touched our hearts with his love. God's desire is for you and me to be used with simple acts done with great love to change this world. One day, Jesus was asked what it meant to love one's neighbor. This guy that was asking this question figured he was already doing it, and so he is hoping to look good in front of the other people. Instead, Jesus tells the story of the Good Samaritan. We all know it's a man traveling along the road who's mugged, who's robbed, and left for dead. Two fellow Jews eventually come by, but they cross on the other side. One of them who goes by is a priest, the other who comes by is a Levite. Neither of them help. Instead, it was a Samaritan, the Jews' number one enemy. The Samaritan stops, he cares for the man, he bandages him up, gets into a hotel room to recover, picks up the bill since his HMO won't cover it, and then Jesus asked his question to the man. He said, of these three men, who do you think was a neighbor to the man who was attacked by robbers? The expert said, the one who was kind enough to help him. And Jesus told him, go and imitate his example. Simple acts done with great love will change the world. God's simple act of Christ's death offers to change our world and invites us to reach out to change the world of others by sharing his love in practical ways. Now, the last thing we need to realize is that my service power is not based on who I am, but who Jesus is through me. The challenge is often that we try to love under our own power. But the power to share Jesus in practical ways comes to us from Christ. Paul, he knew this. Even when he was imprisoned, he knew and experienced the power of Christ at work. And that's why he tells the Philippians and us, Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Salvation and life with God is not by my power, but by what Christ has done. Do you all remember the Nike commercial that used to challenge us to just do it? Well, sharing Jesus in practical ways, with a cup of cold water, with a meal, with words of prayer or a listening ear, or even a ride to the doctor, and so many other ways, is a call to just do it. Yet we need to always remember why we just do it. We do it because Jesus did it. We do it because Jesus died for us. We do it because Jesus gives us life eternal. Jesus empowers us with his presence. He challenges us to live out our purpose not only in the big moments of life, but all of the little ones as well, even through a simple cup of cold water given in his name. It's because we do the small things to show the main thing of God's love at work. We understand that simple acts done with great love will change this world. And we need to realize that my service power is not based on who I am, but on who Jesus is through me. These simple acts done in love seem so small, so insignificant. Yet when you realize that God is at work through them, you discover the great life of sharing Jesus in practical ways. So go forth this week and share Christ in a practical way. Amen.